Hello and welcome back to Parity Radio. So, if you had listened to all of these from the start, you know that one of the the goals that I had for this kind of series, and I don't know if I'd call it a series, but I had for this podcast was I wanted to interview sort of young creatives and use this as a platform to sort of promote them, champion them, get them new eyes on their work. If there's anybody that runs a studio listening, I'd like to get them hired ideally, but I don't know if that's the case or not. Um, and if you listen to the episodes sort of as they've gone on, I sort of strayed away from that a little bit. So I kind of want to get back to what I wanted this to be originally a bit more, if that makes sense. I'm going to name episodes like this differently on sort of the podcast feeds, so you can kind of differentiate from when I'm interviewing sort of an industry professional and trying to get insights from them, and then this is sort of more of a showcase. So they probably won't be very long. They're more just sort of a place where I want you to go and follow this person online, and I want you to go and look at their work and hopefully take some inspiration from them and see what they're doing in kind of the art space or the design space. So yeah, this is episode 2 because the second episode was sort of in this vein. So yeah, this is episode 2 of kind of the designer showcase. And in this episode, I speak to a gentleman called Kieran, who I started following sort of last year. I do go over it a little bit when we're speaking to each other, but I started following last year because I really liked his work. And he does these kind of logo posts. They're all sort of gridded out, and you can sort of see them progressing as they go along. They're really lovely. And yeah, we sort of talk about sort of how we got into design, because originally I thought he was sort of a similar age to myself, or maybe even older, just by judging from his work. But it turns out he's not. He's a lot younger actually, and he doesn't have any formal training in design at all. I believe he studies something. I don't know what he studies, but he studies something else. He doesn't. He's just starting university this year. He doesn't actually study design at all. He sort of does it on the side, I believe. Yeah, and we talk about sort of his work, how he got into design, and sort of what the future holds for him. So yeah, I hope you enjoy and follow Kieran at the end. Go and follow him. Go look at his website. Go look at his work. That's kind of the point of what I want this to be. So yeah, enjoy. To begin with, I guess first of all, I get everybody to sort of introduce themselves to the people listening at home. So sort of, can you introduce yourself and say who you are and what you do a little bit?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm Kieran. I'm a graphic designer, specifically a logo designer and identity designer. And I've been designing for around 4 years, I would say. Yeah, 4 years.
So am I right in thinking you're 18?
Just turned 19 last week.
So you've been designing since you were what? 18, like
Um,
16, 15?
yeah,
Something like that.
around 15.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
jumping forward a little bit for a little bit of context for the people at home, I followed Kieran on his Instagram for about a year now, I think, and we were commenting on each other's posts and things like that. And I DM'd you last year about a project about one of the million different ideas I have, like seemingly every week that go nowhere. Where I wanted to set up like an Instagram account where people would send their work in and I give them feedback like on the actual account, because I'm thinking about going into tutoring of some sort once I've graduated. So I thought it'd tie into that kind of. Um, and it come from the back of I was looking at your work, and just it's probably just me, but I just presume that you were sort of a similar age to myself, and sort of you had graduated and things like that. And as it's turned out, you're not. You're a little bit younger, and you're not even studying a design degree. So I guess jumping forward a little bit, but how did you get into design? I guess what was sort of the first spark that got you interested in things?
Okay, it's a bit of a long story, but I'll try and shorten it for you.
No, take as long as you need.
Okay. The reason I got into design, like the story behind it, is that my older brother is a photographer. And obviously he would have the Adobe Cloud and he would always use like Lightroom and Photoshop. And I would watch him do it sometimes and I would be thinking, I could try that. So I would start messing around with the other programs he had on his computer, like Illustrator. And then I started Googling at random, like how to use Illustrator, and I saw these videos pop up on YouTube about logo designs and things. I was like, oh, that's interesting. So let's try that, and I would just start trying to use Illustrator, and I just kept practicing and practicing every single day before I felt comfortable understanding logo design. And I'd pretty much just practice every single day when I get home from school. And one thing led to another. I made my Instagram account, and things just started going from there, really.
I guess so. Yeah, jumping forward a little bit, you've done some projects. This wasn't. I didn't include this. It's just coming to me now. But when you go into a project, do you have kind of a checklist that you check off in terms of how you get from the start to the end with a client at all?
Yeah, I basically have my own system I've built over the last like year and a half since I've been like properly freelancing. I have my own system where I have the project and I split it into different phases. For example, let's just say I'm doing a logo project for, let's just say, a fitness company. And the first phase would just be purely research and just defining their goals, understanding what they want from me, what they need, and all of that. And then, for example, phase 2 would be like the concept phase. This is where like you'd sketch, get your basic concepts out, and all of that. And then phase 3 would do, for example, refining the ones presented to them. For example, I usually pick, let's just say, 3 concepts which I really like and I think works the best. I'll present it to them and see which ones they like, which ones they don't, what elements they like from each logo, and all of that. And then I'll go into refining these concepts into essentially to tailor it towards what their feedback was. And then from there, I'll say, for example, let's just say I've got 3 concepts left. I'll say, pick one. Let's just go really deep into this one, and then see what the outcome is. And then that's would be where I'd pretty much start presenting the projects and seeing if that's what they want. If not, I'll just go back to phase 3 and I just keep. It's almost like a cycle, like a loop,
Yeah,
until we get exactly what we want.
but you go
That's
into
pretty much
so
it.
that's your system. Going into each one, sort of you have a
Yeah.
checklist. You go 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah,
Yeah.
sort of jumping off the back of that, sort of staying on the subject of kind of work. Do you have a project that you've particularly enjoyed that you've done?
Actually, the one I'm doing now, I'm actually working currently for. I'm doing a brand identity for like a management company. It's based in like New York. It's really interesting. It's because usually when I get projects, it's like either a logo or just like business cards. But this is the entire identity, and this is what I really like doing. So it has everything I want. It has typography, custom typography, logos, identity systems, pretty much everything I could think of in a project, and it's really quite fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you mentioned type. Is type something that you have a big interest in? Because I've seen that you've been doing new typefaces recently, haven't you?
Yeah, to be honest, I've always been interested in type. For example, I would see like, because for example, I have some of my family members who are artists, and I see them doing like graffiti and stuff. It really inspired me to learn type. So I thought, if I can make my own type for a client instead of just using a normal typeface, one, it's better for them, and it's also better for me because it's more work to do.
Yeah, and it cuts out kind of the copyright aspect of things, doesn't it? If you normally
And
you
that,
need into
yeah,
like license type and everything like that. Am I right in thinking that when you do them, you use like a grid to structure them out?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Have you looked at the work of there was a design agency, I think it's defunct nowadays, but they're called 8VO, and they do very similar things to that. They sort of it's like design through numbers, sort of. They do sort of a very similar thing like that. I don't know if something you
I don't
know.
think I've heard of that
No,
before.
it might be something you want to take a look at because they do something that's very similar to yourself, but then they sort of do it in a different way, sort of, if that makes sense. So yeah, you mentioned your Instagram page and how it's sort of skyrocketed in a very short space of time. Um,
Unexpected.
I guess how have you managed to do that? Do you have any sort of tips and tricks as to how you've managed to gain all them followers?
Yeah. To be honest, there is a system to gaining followers on Instagram. It is pretty clear there is a method to do it, and it's pretty okay. Let me try and explain this. The way to do it is being consistent. If you post something every single day, which people come to expect, it will eventually grow. As long as the content's very good and people want to see it. For example, I was posting the logo breakdowns of other people's logos to give like an insight into how I would think the grid would work. I never expected it to do very good, but because I was consistent, I did it every single day, and I would post at 6:30. People would know to come back every single day and see the same type of content. And before you know it grew. I didn't expect it to grow. It's just that I realize now, looking back onto it, the way to grow on Instagram is just by being consistent.
Yeah. And just making good stuff like as often as you can, just keeping it going and keeping it going, and then eventually you'll just get it in. There was a point I did something very similar at one. I don't know how long you followed my stuff, but there was a point where I'd set it up so it would post. I did a thing where I turned it into like a design showcase for a little bit, where I was just pulling other people's work in and then sort of turn it into like a museum of sorts, I guess. And
Oh
I'd
yeah.
post like every 3 hours, and it was just too much. It was just way too much.
Yeah, that's a bit too much.
Yeah, it was just a bollocks, just setting it up every night because I do it like the night before as well, and it's just bollocks.
See, what I would do, I'd make all of my posts on a Sunday.
Yeah, is that what you do when you schedule them out? Then you do them
Yeah,
beforehand the week
I'd make
before.
all of them on the same day,
Yeah, it makes it
so I
way
don't have to
easier,
think
doesn't
about it.
it? When you do it sort of
Yeah,
beforehand. Yeah. Yeah, so I guess jumping forward and sort of beginning to wrap up things, I guess I'd normally ask people, it's sort of a bit of a, when you normally do an interview of sorts, like if you go for a job interview, they'll normally say, where do you think you'll end up in 5 years? And it's sort of that, but I don't want to make it kind of crappy and cliche. So I guess in a sense, if you were to, what does the future hold for yourself? If you were to, where are you going nowadays? I've seen that you're looking to start your own design agency, aren't you? Is that something that
yeah,
you're looking to go into more so?
yeah. Because my freelance schedule is just not efficient anymore. For example, I'm getting if I do too many smaller projects, it just wastes my time. It doesn't make much financial sense. So I want to go to more of the agency route where I can outsource the work and just run it. It's more efficient
Are you looking to like get your own office in the future and things like that, or is it going to be sort of a
eventually.
yeah,
Probably a year or two into the future. Depends how much money I make from it, to be honest,
yeah?
and
I
how
guess that's looking forward.
sure.
Forward, you know what I mean? I'm just
Yeah.
spitballing ideas. But yeah, I guess that's pretty much it. Lastly, as I ask everyone, where can people find you online if they want to look at some of your really lovely work?
Designed by Kieran on Instagram and on Behance. I
Mm-hmm.
don't post there much on either of them anymore, but if you want to go follow, you can. Or if you want to hire me, check out the agency or the studio whenever that starts.
No, yeah, that's fine then. That's pretty much it. Hello. I don't know if you can hear people outside. I think someone's playing music. That's what it is. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed that. As I said sort of at the start, yeah, go follow Kieran online, go give him some support, and yeah, if you want to follow me online, my at everywhere is just pirated material. It's not pirated radio, even though if you're listening to this one, you'd know this anyway. But it's not pirated radio. That's just the name of the podcast. It's pirated material, and that's on Twitter, Instagram. My website is piratedmaterial.co.uk. TikTok, even though I don't really use TikTok, I said it's every episode, but yeah, everywhere you can probably search for someone, it's probably there at Pirated Material. Is there anything else I'd like to mention? I don't believe so. I think that's it. I shall see you next time.